And we are live. So, long time no see. The channel has apparently reached 100,000 views, so I thought what might be interesting would be to take the opportunity to have a look at the upcoming, it's not yet released, Blender 2.8. So, this is all being done completely live. I've not looked at this at all. I've seen some posts on Twitter and whatnot, but it's not installed. So we have to install it first. So open your favorite browser, and that's blender.org. So you'll get the default page. And to download the, we don't want that, so we want download. And we need to scroll down to Go Experimental. So latest experimental builds. Click that. And we'll get this page, which is the builds page. And we want this one, I think, zip file. So click on the link, save file. Oh, actually we can open with, so it'll now download the file, which is 100 megabytes. Hello, Empress. How far has it got? Oh, crikey. Oh. Potato internet for the win. I am very good. Thank you for asking, Empress. We're also trying out, Twitch has implemented this feature called low latency, and apparently it allows streamers, broadcasters, to interact with chatters almost instantaneously. So it seems to be quicker than it normally is already, so that's a plus. And this may take a while. Oh, the paint, it's drying so slowly. Yes, I mean, of course, the low latency is obviously dependent on the fact that it shouldn't really be downloading anything. Oh, why, thank you, Empress. I like your accent. So once the file has downloaded, one of the big advantages of Blender is that you don't need to install only one version of it. And we'll go through that once the file's available. How's the paint? It dries too slow. So yes, the channel has apparently reached 100,000 views, which is a little unexpected. When we started it for IMVU, we weren't expecting it to be quite that popular. Well, relative to IMVU, that is. Oh, you're welcome. We'll hurry back once you've had your dinner. Thank you, and I will. Empress says keep up the good work. Right, so the file is downloaded, and it should be... Ooh, sushi. It should open in WinZip. There we are. So what we've got in WinZip is the file path information, all the files that are needed. And I'm going to sneeze. Had to mute that. Right, so once we've got the files downloaded and they are open in WinZip, what we can do, as you can see, as said, you don't need to install just one version of Blender. That's the advantage of Blender, is that you can install multiple versions, and as you can see there's quite a lot there. So all you do is right click your Windows Explorer or system, new folder, or you can click the button new folder, and we want to call this Blender 2.8. Whoops. And then what we can do here is extract and it's thinking. Not responding. Has it crashed? Oh, well, this is a good sign. Yeah, it's not responding. It shouldn't be doing that, so close the program. Oh, I wonder if it's because Microsoft is probably scanning the files as they're trying to be opened. Extract. Oh, there we go. So we want the folder we just created. And foundation 2.8 dev. So use folder names, that's okay. Extract. of course we now have to wait for it to extract the files. So again, this is all new, live. Not looked at this before. So this is cat reacts, hashtag cat reacts. That's a lot of files. That is a lot of files. Need more potatoes. And it's done. So we should now have, yeah. So inside the folder that we created, we've now got the extracted files. You can, if you want, just select all and move them into that folder you created, but it doesn't really matter. So let's close that and double click the exe, see what happens. Oh no. Well, so that means that OpenGL 3.3. Oh, so we're kind of stuffed really then. That basically means that anyone that's running Intel chipsets, let's take a look at that actually. Let's do a bit of research. Intel graphics, whoops, chips. List of Intel processing units. What we need to find out is what version of OpenGL they support. So there's OpenGL. So that's 1.1. 1.3. GMA. Where are the 4000? So where's OpenGL? OpenGL 2.2. So wow. I mean, this is granted this is a development release, and as such they're not necessarily going to be focusing too much on overt support, but if that error message OpenGL 3.3 support, if that's going to be the fundamental or the lowest what is it, the minimum required system requirements, minimum system requirements, that's not going to be good news at all for a lot of people, because where's it gone? I mean, we're talking granted they're 8 years old, but they're still quite common CPUs. The i7s, i3, i5, so that's 6th gen, 5th gen. So that's OpenGL 2.1. So that's weird. API support, desktop. So you've got i3, i5, i7. HD Graphics 3000. So that's what's on this system, is HD 3000, and it says that it should be supported. Oh no, 3.1. Mac is 3.3. So it looks like if you have anything that's greater than 5 years old, 2013, because it doesn't look as if Intel will be updating the drivers for these old graphics cards. So if you've got something that's 5 years old or so, it basically means you're up the creek without a paddle for using Blender 2.8 based on current files. So that's kind of, we're stuck. There's no, can't go any further with this because the graphics card just doesn't support the OpenGL 3.3 and above. So it looks like unless they change that requirement, unless they change this, it looks like anything that's with embedded graphics chipsets, at least, anything that's older than 5 years is not going to run Blender 2.8 and future Blenders, unless of course they address that. So that's a bit of a disappointment. There was some comment about it, but wasn't specifically. They mentioned that you needed a newer graphics card with better OpenGL support, but it looks like they're actually using this now as the final cutoff point. So yes, anything that's older than maybe 5 years, so that's 2018, so it's 2013, anything older than 2013 looks like it's going to be a no-go. That's going to be pretty hard for laptop users or small form factor PCs that use embedded chipsets. So yeah, well, that was an interesting experiment that has resulted in a no-show. But okay, at least we've seen how you can install multiple versions of Blender. Just make sure you create your folder and then either install or extract directly to the folder that you create during the, if you're using WinZip, the extract process, or if you're using the Windows installer, the install process. And that will allow you to have lots of versions of Blender installed, and they don't interfere with one another. Sorry about that, I had to cough. So yes, we're stuck. That's it. So unless anyone wants to donate 1,000 potatoes for a new computer, it looks like that's the end of the line for older systems. And I doubt that will be addressed, but anyway, so that's a disappointment. I was hoping to go through and have a look at Blender. I do have another system though that we can try this on, but it's not hooked up. So whilst we're streaming, might as well do something. So let's make a coffee table. Feel like a coffee table. So we've got 2.79 open. And this is for IMVU. Furniture. So download either IMVU's official starter files, which are available. Oops, wrong one. So so if you go imvu.com/download PHP, that'll get you. Make sure that you're using the latest version of IMVU as well. We want create a program. FBX import. Looks like the internet is being really potato tonight. And then download the starter files. That'll give you the ones for Blender, 3D Studio Max, Maya, and SketchUp. Oh, hi Frenzy. I wasn't. It took a couple of minutes to download. But if you saw, just go to the downloads page. I'm doing very well. Just go down to the Blender downloads page, scroll down to the bit where it says go experimental, and then click on that. And you'll then get options to download the file. Oh, alright, you just got here. Alright, well, for those that just got here, so let's do that again. Blender. Blender.org. So, standard page, download, scroll down, go experimental. So you want this pinkish, reddish, rusty color section. Click that, and it'll give you the development builds, and you want the one that says, well, the one that's colored this sort of odd pinkish color, and they'll be listed depending on how recent they are. But if you've got a system, if you missed the bit about the system compatibility, you will need to have a computer that is going to be at least, well, less than 5 years old. Any older than that and you may get issues with the graphics card driver not supporting the graphics system. No, it's not a full release. No, Francis is asking if it's a full release. No, this is a development build. 2.8 won't be out for a while, I guess. Oh, well, you should be able to. Is a year old? You should be able to run it then. Well, if you download the zip file and install this to a... we'll extract it to its development folder, you should be able to run 2.8. But can't on this system because it's too old. So anyway, back to the what we were doing. So for Blender, download the sample files or cat's bits. And you want the FBX files, which are all listed, the ones that are available, currently available. So let's make something, coffee table. So once you've downloaded the starter files, either from IMVU or from cat's bits, you want to load in the furniture brackets nodes file. So you can either drag and drop this from Windows Explorer or just load it, open it from the file menu, open. So we're going to make a coffee table. Might as well use the box that we've got. And if you want it to be the height that somebody could sit on it, you can leave it at that height or just make adjustments to it as you might see fit. So edit mode, so that's the tab key, so we're always toggling in and out of that. Let's just make something, a coffee table. Ooh. So that means, right, so the cursor, not the cursor, the widget is positioned at the cursor because we have pivot points set. So we need to adjust that so that it's the active element, and that'll now move the widget when we select something. So select, just drop that down. What we're going to do is make the tabletop. So holding Control down, we snap to the grid. And let's make this wide. So that's multiple selections, which is Shift, right click. And then what we can do is scale in a particular direction. So we can press the S key and then the X key, which locks this, locks the axis, which is this red. And we can change the focus from the selected element to a median point, which is the middle. Well, it's an average point of a selection. And then we can do S, X, hold Control key down, and that will snap to the grid. And we can resize the top. Do the same on the other side. S to shrink, and then press the Y key to lock the axis. Press the Z key or Z key just to switch between wireframe and solid mode. That's alright. Yes, Frenzy, you should be fine with 2.8. So that's the top, simple top. And we need to add a cube. as we've got the cursor over here, because we've left clicked, we want to add the cube in position. So easy way to do this is right click the object that we've just been editing, Shift S, cursor to selected, or object snap, and use one of these. In this instance, cursor to selected. It's the same menu but just accessed using shortcut keys. So what we can do now is Shift A, and we get the add menu. So we want to add a mesh, just a cube. That adds a cube. We need to reposition this, so to help doing that, use your numpad keys, or if you don't have numpad keys, get rid of perspective, and then we want front. So we can go into edit mode, and leaving the cursor where it is, and as we're in edit mode it will also leave the origin point of the object where it is, and we can just move that upwards. Toggle out of the modes that we just, the view mode that we just went into. The shortcut key for that is numpad 5. Numpad 1, that's front view, which we're in. So just numpad 1 is front view, and numpad 3 side or right, numpad 7 is top. Those are probably the most common views that you'll use. Do the same thing again. So multi-select, so right click, shift right click, press the S key, and then X or Control, and just snap. And then right click, shift right click. Oh no, that's all right. That'll do. Nice and simple. So once we've got the cube, we need to add a material. This one already, the top one, the one that was originally with the scene, that's already got a material. So we can either click the new button or the plus button. Either or does the same thing. Now if you want the bottom and the top to be to use different textures, or to allow different textures to be assigned, let's say wood for the bottom bit and glass or plastic for the top bit, you need to create two separate materials, or you'll need to have two materials when you join the top and the bottom together. So we want coffee, this will be space 1, and we need to adjust the original, which is called block 0, so we can call that coffee, leave the 0. Double check. So you can either double click the actual entry in the list, or you can click in the input field. So when we join these, not now, but when we join these together, we'll have two materials. So we've got a material assigned. The material now needs to have a texture. So again, either the new button, oh well, there's no plus button on here, but new button, set of properties, and we can call this coffee. Coffee bottom. Don't need the numerical appends for texture properties. We need to create a, well, no, we don't actually. We can use, what we can do is, because we've used the default furniture Actually, we've got a couple of options. So we want this to be a separate texture, so we'll need to create a new one. So new coffee bottom, width 256 by 128. Switch that to UV grid. Okay, and we should get a grid generated. UVs, that's okay. So we need to assign this image to this object. Best thing to do there is we need a UV map first, so edit mode, select all, which is the A key, and then press the U key, or from the mesh menu, UV unwrap. We can do a reset here. We only need a simple UV map. So with that done, still in edit mode, we can switch the layout, UV editing. If that's not available, it's not always available. These options don't always appear for some peculiar reason. So if this is not available, what you can do is just use the editor type selector, which is this button in the corner. All the views have this. That's that one. That's for the same again, outliner. Same again for the timeline. They all have this. All you need to do is click that and select UV image editor, and it'll change the main view to the UV image editor, or 3D view. You can split the view. So there's a little chevron in the corner, bottom left corner of every view. If you left click drag that, it'll split the view, and that'll give you the option then to, in this view, the one that you want, set the UV image editor. To join them, left click and drag whichever way you want to join the two together. So UV imaging. And switching layouts, the layout, whatever layout you use, is independent of all the other layouts. So you might notice that this is textured in the 3D view. In the default layout, this is textured. But if we switch to the UV editor, it's not. So you can adjust that by Alt-Z or Alt-Z, and that switches to textured mode, or use the buttons, the viewport shading button. So we've got our object and everything selected, which is the UVs, and then all we do is down here we use the browse to, and then we've got coffee bottom, the image that we created, and it should appear on the mesh. There we go, simple as that. Oh, and it's clipping the scene. So for IMVU in particular, which uses a much larger scale, so in the 3D view, press the N key, get properties up. We want to increase the clip end. That'll do, 5000. Press the N key to get rid of it again. So that's our simple box. Yes, it did. Friends is just saying it took a long time to extract. Yes, it did. There must be a couple of thousand files in there, I guess. So once we've got our object textured, what we actually want to do as well is, this is a generated temporary texture, so we need to convert this to a real image. So in the UV image editor, down here we have the image menu option, and it's got a little asterisk after it. That indicates that there's some data that needs to be saved. or the data's changed and needs to be saved. So image, save as image. Are we in furniture? Yes, we're in furniture. Coffee bottom, PNG. You can leave it at PNG, or preferably use one of the lossless formats. Try and avoid using JPEG. And what this does is it converts it to a real, inverted commas, a real bitmap that replaces the generated material texture that we created. So if we go back into default and inspect the material now, the material properties have changed. So instead of the generated image data that we were using before, it's now just an image, an external image. That means it's real. So next step, exit edit mode. What we can do now is join the two together. So right click, shift right click, that moves both of them together. And then Control J, or object join. Now why has that gone white? But that's one object, so if you right click it again, press the G key and move it, it'll move. So let's check materials. So we've got coffee 0 and coffee 1. Has that turned it inside out? Nope. Might have to reassign that. So we need to select just the grey bits so we can use our material assignments for this. Select the material and then just click select, and it'll select everything that's assigned that material. So go back into UV editing mode, make sure that that image is assigned. What is it doing? Looks like it's ignored the UV map, so we have to UV map that again. Press the U key, reset. There we go. No idea why it's done that. Frenzy's saying you have a little timestamp, so it's 5,000 files. Right, so 5,000 files in the zip file for extracting. And yes, it is. It's very different. They are, from what I understand, they're trying to unify is the wrong word. But they're essentially trying to unify the interface so that essentially, let me switch back to default. From what I understand, what they're actually trying to do with Blender 2.8 is unify the interface. So basically, when you open Blender, this would be all that you would essentially see, and that the different editing modes, the different contexts, instead of being, I think, instead of being selectable options as they are in 2.79, in 2.8, there are a set of options or tabs that run across the top. I'm not sure where they are. I think they're on the left-hand side. And you switch mode, selecting the options from the tabs that will be available at the top. And then the icons, or the buttons, the tool shelf buttons, instead of being these buttons with text on them, they're now icons. Yes, yeah. Send sling us a screenshot so we can see it, Frenzy. So you've got the tabs at the top. So they're rejigging everything. So the context modes are actual. It seems that they're more global. So if you have editing selected, it looks like the way that they're going is that the edit mode means that you're able to edit anything on screen, not just as we have to do here. We have to select an individual object to edit the thing. Yeah, so there you go. Let me just put this on screen. Francis just put this through. So that's what so I don't know how clear this will come out through. So we've got a general one at the top, which I guess is the same as the standard 3D view that we've got. And then, because the... Oh no, there's the object mode button. So here's another one. So that's user preferences, which looks the same. Friends is just doing us a favor and sending us screenshots . So we still have... Oh, I need to open Zoom. I wonder if I can... I need to be able to draw on screen. Let's try this, see if it works. Right. No, it's fine, friends. I was just because Zoom has this. It allows us to draw on screen. So in 2.8 then we still have in the main 3D view we still have the mode selector. So it's showing object mode at the moment because the cube is an object. We've still got pivot point stuff. We've still got cursor. but all the buttons are, well, they're now icons instead of buttons, or buttons and text. So preferences is the same, looks like more or less. So the main interface, definitely going to have to try and get this running on the other PC. So we've got the tool shelf, outliner, properties, timeline is still there, and then obviously the info bar at the top. We've got the mode selector, which has shifted its position. So instead of being here, I think it is by default. Where's, oh, can't do that whilst Blender's open, whilst a note's active. So instead of it being there, it's now been shifted over here. So the viewport stuff to do with the, oh, so where's the widget gone? Or is that just disabled for the time being? Not visible. But we have to ask, hang on, lost the side toolbar task tabs. Oh right, yes, so the tasks, I think that's what the stuff running along the top is, or what should be here. But we have to ask, what advantage because essentially all that's been done from the right hand side, from the toolbar's perspective, this versus this, is that it looks like there is no longer the divider here, depending on what tool you have selected, and instead of just buttons with text on them, they're now got icons. So side by side, the immediate question is, well, what advantage does that provide? Unless there's an organizational thing, so that if you click on move, it'll open up a list of functions that are specific to move, which obviously this just lays everything out. The way that Blender currently is, it just lays everything out, which is what contributes to its confusing interface, is the fact that everything is almost visible all at the same time, regardless as to whether you actually need it or not. So what they may principally be trying to do is reorganize everything so that it's all displayed relative to context. That's funny. Hang on. This is the grid. And it is now infinite into a foggy distance. That's quite funny. Instead of, as it is at the moment, just being cropped, which has its advantages. You turn the widget on if you are watching the, well, obviously you're watching the stream. I've got the screenshot up that you sent through of the general interface. It should be this button here. And that will probably expand the default rotate. What is it? So you've got the little arrow, you've got the curve, and then you've got the one with the square on it. Oh, so it is doing that. That is exactly what it's doing. So here's what, here is what they are. View image. So yes, it looks like that is what they are doing with the tool shelf. So we're in rotate. And we've now got a set of options that are specific to rotate. Or, well, not rotate, but the mode that you're in, which weren't displayed before. Interesting. So it's not, there aren't really that, I mean, obviously they're doing a lot. Oh, and the Blender game engine and Blender render, the default scene rendering is gone. So that will probably account for the fact that you need to have a relatively modern or capable, OpenGL capable graphics card. There we go. So this is arrows and highlights not included. Yeah, so quite a lot changes depending on the context. So it looks like what they're actually doing really is reorganizing the tools so that they're not all visible all the time, regardless of what mode you're in. So it is an interface tidying, basically, by the looks of things. I wonder if this side panel can be made transparent so that you've got the icons just appearing over the top of the 3D view. Yeah, so properties, view properties is still there. Close some of these tabs, otherwise we'll break the computer. So that's view properties. And as we're in edit mode, or Frenzy's still in edit mode, we've got the edit tools still visible. Whoops. So the cube is still in edit mode and we've still got edit tools visible. I'm not specifically sure what the rationale is for reorganizing the position of these menu elements to the left of the main menu items, because it doesn't necessarily provide any additional functionality. So if these are being changed just from the point of view of repositioning them, then it doesn't seem optimal, for want of a better way of putting it, doesn't seem optimal to move them just for the sake of moving them, when moving them it may not necessarily be specifically advantageous. If everyone's used to them being here, and these three buttons, I think they're here, aren't they? Where's Blender? So in edit mode, oh yes, so to the side of, yeah, to the side of global. So this, I mean, yes, reorganizing the tool shelf and the context menu, the context sensitive stuff, so that it appears in the tool shelf, but there isn't really a specific reason for these just being moved for the sake of moving them, if moving them doesn't provide any particular functionality. I mean, move the stuff that needs to be moved because it's being changed, but just keep everything else as it is for the sake of consistency. But the last time I said things like that about the interface, things didn't go so well. So yeah, that's thanks for those, Frenzy. That was quite interesting looking at those. So it's not too much has changed thematically. It just seems that a lot of the stuff, a lot of the work that they're doing is reorganizing everything so that it's all shown contextually. Oh yes, that's user preferences. So this is hang on. Yeah, so that Frenzy is user preferences, and it usually has a lot of, and that looks like, is that the imports? Oh, the add-ons. Yeah, that's always had a huge list of stuff. So that's not unexpected, and it doesn't look as if they've changed anything here. Yeah, same again. So user preferences. is that system? Yeah, that's system settings again. So there's nothing particularly new there by the looks of things. I mean, there may be different options and things available, but it doesn't look as if anything ostensibly has been changed here. So user preferences, I don't expect much to be changed or altered other than settings to do with, well, you've got, yeah, so there'll be different settings, but overall it doesn't look as if much has changed. So that's fine. Yeah, so thanks for those. That was quite interesting looking at that. So let's continue with our, get this done. So we've got a texture assigned to the bottom and the top. We've got a single mesh. We now need to edit mode, select everything. That's the A key. Object data properties. We need to make sure that the root vertex group that was assigned to the original cube is assigned to everything, which is including the new mesh that we've added. So with that selected, the entire mesh selected, click assign, and then double check, and it should select everything, so that's fine. Exit edit mode. So what we can do next is, and this might already be done, so if we right click the root, this is the furniture skeleton, it's already parented because it's kept the property, the parent property of the original, the green bit that was originally the cube. But if that were not the case, so if you moved the root node, that's press the G key, and that just puts you into free transform or free translate, so you can freely move the object around. If that moves without the mesh, select the mesh first, right click, and then shift right click the root node, and then you want Control P. And we want to parent object, keep transform. Then if we select the root node again, press the G key, everything will move. So before we export though, we want to do something to this. So select the mesh, tab into edit mode. I'll just switch mode so that we can see. I'm going to add an edge loop. So Control R, get this pink outline. That now being horizontal means that this vertical edge along the front here is going to be split in two at the midpoint. If you move it over one of the front edges, this front edge is going to be split in two along the vertical. So we want horizontal, left click, and then move this up towards the top, not all the way up to the top, but close to, and then just left click to confirm. Exit edit mode. Switch back to texture mode, so you can see that doing that has changed the appearance of the texture. So what we can do, edit mode, select all, and then we can just do a remap, or in this instance what we need to do is adjust the UVs, because if we remap this doing a reset, what will happen, well, let's do it. If we reset, it'll reset everything like that, and we don't want it to do that, so undo. But we do want to address the change that's occurred here. So using our adding an edge loop, it automatically switches to edge mode, so we have to keep switching between edge and face so that we can select faces. But what we want to do is just What is that doing? Oh, it's selecting the ones at the back. Oh, that's what it's done. So, yes. So that's that face, which is huge. And it's done that to all of them. So all we need to do is deselect everything in the UV image editor to make sure nothing's selected. Press the B key, which is box select. Drag a box around the center vertices. Press the G key and then X. And then we can slide this and redistribute the texture. So yeah, it's about there. Double check on all sides, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Exit edit mode. Back into default mode. And then what we're going to do here is do a little bit of vertex painting. So object selected, switch mode, vertex paint. That'll give us the vertex paint tools. We're just going to shade this. And we get a little, the cursor has a little circle attached to it. All we need to do is just left click on a vertex and it will tint the mesh. I'll switch mode to make it easy to see. So that's shading on the underside of the table. And then we want to add a little bit of shading at the floor. And the colour, or the tint, is assigned or painted to the vertex based on the orientation of the view. So painting the vertex from this perspective will generally mean that the bottom of the face will still remain white, so you have to reorientate the view so that you can paint it. But adding that loop cut means that we can the grey colour doesn't go all the way from top to bottom. Exit, switch to texture mode so that we can see that shading that we've just done. That looks okay. Double check. Make sure that we have sharp edges. So for this object, we want smoothing. So some of these edges have already been marked sharp, but because of the simple shape of this object, what we can do is just enable the angle. And that'll make everything look sharp. And then all we need to do is export. Oh, save the file first. Save as. And then export. FBX. And then we want selected objects only. Leave all of this, that's fine. Apply modifiers, that's optional, but you can leave it. Armatures, we don't need that. Animations, no animation. So that's fine. And then export. And then once we've got that, Oh, Liana's joined. Hello, Liana. No, we were just looking at the development build, 2.8 development build. It won't run on the PC that I've got here, that I'm running the stream from, but Frenzy was kind enough to install it and send us a couple of snapshots, screenshots. But basically, if you've got a computer that's using the embedded Intel chipsets, so your Intel HD graphics, if your computer is older than 5 years or so, you'll likely find that 2.8 won't load. Or it won't run, I should say. Right, so let's check our coffee table. Create mode. Derive new product. Rooms and furniture, which gives us the default chair. Go. So FBX import, load FBX. Furniture, what do we call it? Coffee table. Coffee table, select, open. So we've got the mesh and the two materials. That's fine. We need to change the scale 0.1, 0.01. 01. Don't change the axis. And then import. Oh, we need to change that to 0. So that's mesh ID. That overrides the default seed. Now we can import. Gives us a warning about overriding default textures, which is fine. Import changes. And then apply. And there we have our coffee table. Coffee. And it's got the vertex shading assigned. Nice. So we double check that. Meshes. Yeah, vertex color. Vertex color. And that's the coffee table. With some vertex color painting. And obviously it's got, it doesn't have any seating, obviously, because we didn't add any. But we, well, we could, but we'd probably need to create a custom pose because the height of this is below the height of the seated avatar. So we'd have to create a custom pose for that. but that might be for another stream. Oh, and also, because we've got the textures in the default project folder, and because we saved that generated texture and it converted it into a real one, it also dropped that image into the project folder, which means that when it's imported as an FBX, IMVU will automatically reconstruct the file, and it'll pull in the assets that it finds, which is very useful, especially for projects where there are lots and lots of textures. Well, this was only supposed to be a quickie to have a quick look at Blender 2.8, the development build, but as it won't run on the machine, we just decided to make something instead. But thanks to Frenzy for the screenshots, and it looks like not too much has changed in terms of the fundamentals of Blender. So it looks like all they're doing is essentially reorganizing things, so you're not staring at all the buttons all the time, regardless as to what it is that you're doing. It's just then a question of the usual test of time to see how much it improves pickup of Blender compared to other 3D apps. Ouch, that's not good. You need to keep covered up, Frenzy. Sunburn. Well, I can say that IMVU, we will be doing some, well, there's been a bit of a gap between our this stream and the last stream, because IMVU has been organizing itself in terms of what it wants to do with Twitch. But there's a lot of interesting stuff coming, which I cannot say anything about, but I can say that there is some interesting stuff coming. And hopefully quite a bit of stuff as well. So hopefully towards the end of this month and maybe into June, we should be back up to running on a relatively regular basis. Which will be good. So subscribe, follow, all the buttons pressed and whatnot to make sure that you get notifications. And we shall see you on the next live stream. So bye for now. I think we'll probably leave it there and just that's an hour and a half. Yeah, so until the next stream.